Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happenstance in this wonderful dialogue as a part of our continuing efforts on the Truth Bomb Express. This is Patrick Lovell, and I'm the Clean New Deal alongside my colleague right below me, Roseanne Rabiola Mile. And today we're joined on Sunday, I believe it is right after Thanksgiving, of course, which puts us at, seemed like it was a little late this year, November 30th. 2025, and we're recording this on Sunday at about, I guess it's 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're also joined today for the first time, a person that we discovered vis-a-vis Zev Shalev and Lev Parnas,
hmm
and who has a Substack page, and her name is Kathy Utley, pardon me. And
hmm Okay.
Mike is somebody that we have been involved with on a number of occasions, a woman we discovered on Blue Sky by the name, she goes by the name Jen Expresses, and she has quite a large following on Blue Sky. So I'm just going to set the table real quick, and then I'm going to kind of just see where the conversation goes. But you know, for anybody who has been scratching their head about where the military stands on all things Trump, we certainly have seen a great deal of activity this week, beginning with Mark Kelly. Of course, the threat by the White House to, I believe, hang for treason anybody who is sending messages to the military to not obey Donald Trump's orders. And of course, we know that he was basically put as the tyranny in chief from the Supreme Court in this ridiculous scenario. But beyond that, obviously, Mark Kelly and the eight Democrats that got involved with pushing against that were able to, I think, make a huge splash in context to, well, we know that we sent our carrier group down to Venezuela in the Caribbean and all things shooting at fishing boats, plowing them out of the water without any congressional support. And from what I can tell, it's murder, straight and simple. And that's part and parcel to why the Democrats had stepped into and leaned into to inform those that are in service to not follow orders, especially. And I heard something very moving and inspiring from R. Kelly regarding the Navy, who's about as professional as it gets. And it puts obviously the military in a real quagmire. But further to that, of course, some of the impetus for Trump going into Venezuela supposedly is drug dealing. And that's what he's saying, is that these are narco boats that he's blowing out of the water. Meanwhile, he just pardoned the former president of Honduras, who is on the record for saying he's going to flood the American markets with cocaine to basically seize up America, and this in context of working with the known cartels. And of course, this is completely just asinine in context to just all of the other outrageous stupidity. And I will add this as we start to roll into this. I happened to see earlier today, I thought was a very compelling analysis on the news that came out of the FBI this week regarding nothing to see here as it related to the Trump assassination attempt. That there was no causality, there was no reason for the assassin, who obviously was killed, Thomas, and I can't think of his last name, the young man, I think 22 years oldish, former MAGA turned whatever, in one of these particularly egregious circumstances. But um, this guy who's got a pretty intriguing podcast, who's an attorney, and he just hates all things Donald Trump. He just laid out the most comprehensively ridiculous uh, analysis of the assassination attempt. Where after I had left that, I was like, this is just absolutely insane that Trump got away with this. It's pretty evident, all things considered. There was ridiculous scenarios like the person who was in charge of the NSA, that was in charge of all things security that day, who under any circumstances would have been fired for anybody else because that assassination attempt actually supposedly manifested. But of course, this guy was elevated to even a higher position when Trump came into office, among other things, and they just swept it under the rug because we've all been dealing with, of course, nothing more. I mean, just nonstop for 9 months or more. I guess we're getting closer to a year, really, now that I think about it. But all things flood the zone, right? Doge and so forth. So, yes, people are insanely frustrated. They're orienting in the right direction. Many People are galvanizing, including that I've seen veterans, very inspiring veterans from the Marine Corps. I have seen all week long these really tough guys, semper fi to the tilt, saying this to Donald Trump, and they're all running for office, right? So I'm like, okay, that's really intriguing, right? As a fusion of people saying, we're not going to follow orders. This guy is the freaking corrupt, the corrupt state in chief. All of the $5 billion and all of Doge and killing 600,000 people in Africa to date, trying to starve 42 million people. We could go down the list, and I apologize if I'm not hitting everything at the moment. But what we're here to try to attempt to penetrate this new movement, because there is a sea shift. There are people from
Mhm.
last Tuesday forward, because of what took place with Zoran Mondani in New York City, obviously the two Democratic governors, Proposition 50. I could go down the list as well. Obviously, if we're not prevented from voting, which is a very strong possibility, all things considered, not to mention all of the tactics of cheating that obviously MAGA is going to be in the midst of. But it's pretty clear, I think, to anybody paying attention, that there is a strong will of the American people to say adios to this insanity as quickly as possible. But here's the problem: nobody has a plan
Mm.
to purge corruption requisite the insanity that we're in the midst of. Anybody for a second believes that Donald Trump created this madness, you have no idea what's been going on in this country for now literally decades.
40 years, 50 years.
Yeah, well, we'll say
Mhm.
that's probably a good a good
Assessment.
well, neoliberal empire. Let's put it that way, right?
Right.
But certainly, in terms of what we happen to be experts in, all things financial fraud. There's
Hmm.
there's a corollary from the 80s forward, from the savings and loan crisis. I mean, and this is stuff that happened in the past, but never as, shall we say, sophisticated or in sync because of technology and as many people in the
Their
system
face.
that know how to do this stuff, right? And so, savings and loan crisis, junk bond crisis, all things 2000, tech bubble, all things Enron, WorldCom, and the list goes on, but culminating in what was the 2008 great financial crisis. And following the great 2008 great financial crisis, this country utilized extraordinary measures that had never been utilized in the history of the United States, or quite frankly, the history of the world, to maneuver to provide a financial float device, if you will, to the
Hmm.
system that destroyed the world. And that's the problem. No one
Hmm.
knows what happened and what's continued to happen for the past 14 years. And so, what our position is, if you don't know what is, you can't fix it. So, what I say all the time is that we're kind of like the black box of the dead American dream, and we've got the answers in every direction, but we're trying to get these answers to really thoughtful people, good people all around the country who are as desperate as anybody else to get this contagion of corruption out. And how are we going to do it? So that's where I want to
Hmm.
start the dialogue. And I think I want to start with you,
Hmm.
Kathy, because you wrote
Hmm.
an amazing article, and I'm so honored to be honestly compared that directly, and it's hilarious, to Jesus Christ. And it's funny because I always say all the time, I'm not your savior, man. I'm just a deliverer. But you make this incredible case about cleansing
Yeah.
Congress, and you
Right.
take that to obviously the parables and the money changers. Why don't we start there and just kind of get an idea of where you want to go and what speak your truth, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Um, well, first of all, just to introduce, kind of what I do is not all the time, but probably about 90% of the time, I write about current and news events and things that are happening in our culture and society. I try to bring it from a personal perspective, but I also try to look at things from a progressive Christian perspective, and I'll tell you why. I First of all, I always clarify this with people that I'm talking to. Colorado Springs has a reputation for these big mega churches that are very ultra conservative, and we have focus on the family here, by God, all that stuff. But the more liberal and progressive Christians have really stayed out of the conversation and partly because like my faith is Presbyterian, um, partly because they believe in the separation of church and state. I think that you're starting to see, you talked about Patrick, a new wave. What I am starting to see is that is shifting, that progressive Christians, whether they're Catholics or Protestants, whatever their faith is, are starting to step up and speak out and get involved. And we've seen that by through James Tallarico. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He is a serves in the Texas state legislature. He's been on all the bro media things. But anyway, you're starting to see that come up. And then that was my passion. My passion was that I wanted to bring that voice to the movement, which I think is very important. And so I just wrote this piece on the whole parable of Christ going into the temple and turning over the tables of the money changers, which they were changing money from Roman money to whatever currency they used, but also the people who sold pigeons, because they sold those to people who were poor so that they could have some
Yeah.
basically it was like a poll tax, right? And anyway, I wanted to tell Patrick's story and make that comparison between what he is doing. And let me tell you why. This is the most important thing. I have written a lot about the fact, and I was almost crying when you were talking, Patrick, about the Navy and the Caribbean and everything, because I moved to Colorado Springs in the fall of 2020 with my now late husband, Dominique Stevenson, who was Caribbean, Trinidadian by ethnicity, became an American citizen, joined the U.S. Navy. Um, and so it just breaks my heart. But anyway, he died of COVID-19 during the height of the pandemic, literally 2 weeks after we moved here. So I lost him. But what I wanted to say to you, Patrick, is that, and to the ladies here in your audience, I didn't have any community. I didn't know anyone. I was new here, and I joined this church, and because my husband never had a memorial service, they did that for me so that we could honor his memory. But I felt like really strange because my husband was an atheist, and yet he was so giving. He was so kind. And I said to this group of Christians sitting there, my husband was the most Christ-like person I ever met in my life, and he didn't believe in God. And this woman came up to me and she said, God speaks through everyone in their own way. And that's how I feel about Patrick and about all the people who are a part of this movement. Doesn't matter. I'm not here to judge somebody else's belief or not. But what I do believe is that we are doing the work. He is doing the work of Christ. We are doing that work, whether you believe it or not. Maybe you just believe you're doing good things, and that's okay too. But so I wrote about that. The one thing, Patrick, that I wanted to share, though, is that I'm amazed at how many people don't understand the connection between all this money in politics and the fact that there's so much corruption. I mean, it just floors me. The first thing that I always do is follow the money. I look at who's financing, these politicians. And by the way, I used to be a diehard Democrat all my life, and I probably still will vote for Democrats. I am no longer. I'm an independent now. I just do not want to attach myself to either party because, in my opinion, they're both corrupt, and they both live within the same corrupt system. So we have to get money out of politics, basically. I don't know how you do that, but and I know that you're up against a lot with your organization and your idea and your movement because you're up against the places like what's the foundation? I'm drawing a blank. You guys probably know that funds Project
Heritage,
2025.
Heritage
Yeah, like
Foundation.
the Heritage
Heritage
Foundation.
Foundation?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, how do we compete with that kind of money? You know?
Let me just address two things that you said right away because I think this is
Yeah.
extremely important for. I was really touched by your story. Thank you for sharing that. But really,
Yeah, you're welcome.
what we know is that the entirety of this MAGA apocalypse is the triad. It's the tetron, okay,
Right.
between
Hmm.
the big money, the billionaire, rapist, elitist, pig, transactional pedo class that thinks that everybody else is expendable.
Right.
They fancy themselves, to use another religious metaphor or biblical sort of reference, pharaohs. They
Right.
truly, honestly, and a lot of them, by the way, happen to be Jewish. I'll just mention that, which is just incredibly insane to
That's
me,
okay.
all things
Yeah.
considered. But that
Hmm.
goes for a lot of people in different places, including Christians that could be
Right.
progressive, right? Because
Right.
the other side of this is white supremacists, literally Nazis, and we've had these guys in our country forever. These guys have fancied themselves. I don't know. I mean, I think back to Rachel Maddow's podcast called Ultra, which really did a terrific job giving the historical context of really. I'll just say, John Birch Society first, but it went into America first, and all of these guys that were using the churches,
Right.
and then all of this money underneath to basically create and control courts. And of course, we knew Jim Crow, and we know that, for example, Hitler based the Nuremberg sort of laws based on he created that inspired by Jim Crow. So yeah, we
Hmm.
inspired Hitler's vertical. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, in that particular context, before, everything else, all right. The difference between our white supremacy and, let's say Nazis is they want to murder everybody. We just want to enslave everyone and exploit everybody, and then find pathways to money behind the scenes to be able to maintain that control through the vestibule of power. Now, to your point, in this further analogy, right, of cleansing the temple, right, and then ultimately the irony of what you just mentioned vis-a-vis the religious part of this aspect, right? The, it was news to me. I just discovered this past weekend that the guy who created the John Birch Society is none other than Fred Koch, the father of the
Oh,
Koch brothers that created, of course, All Things Heritage Foundation. And lest we forget that Fred Koch went to cross pollinate isms. He basically got flushed out of the America oil market early because he had some game changing technology apparently that the monopolies wouldn't enable, and so he went
hmm.
and built it for Stalin. So he was a free marketer and then built it for the communist empire under Stalin. And he became insanely rich because, of course, the Russian pockets of oil, I think, is as big as any place on earth.
Right.
I mean, there's a couple of finds in Saudi. The Gwar find is that big, but I mean, Russia's a giant oil producing company, so or country. So you can see those things. To hear you say that, okay, there's Christian progressives. Well, of course there's Christian progressives. There's Jewish progressives in the United States. There's Muslim progressives that I've come across. And what I have seen, and it's so incredibly important that you brought all of this up because this is what I'm trying to get people to understand. I don't care what ism, what nationality, what gender, what personal preference in your lifestyle, or of course race. We're all in this together, man. We gotta reach across all of these specific silos to be able to connect with the truth of the clean new deal. Now, I'm not
Hmm.
running for office, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to take all of this information that we have, which is, by the way, you said, how are we going to compete with the likes of the Kochs? Now, when you say that, the first thing that I consider is that they've spent literally decades. We're talking 6 decades from John Birch Society. They're incredibly clever. They're incredibly organized. They have incredible resources. They've spent over decades billions to build think tanks, to build universities, to build law schools, to build a certain apparatus of a power check that has been able to manifest this entirety of this scenario ultimately in Project 2025. So for learned people, people who understand structure, people who understand systems, Yeah, that's a huge bulwark that we're up against. Okay,
Right.
they won, but the thing is, how did they win? Well, we got all those answers, and here's what I'm trying to reveal to the American people. Elon Musk's worth north of $400 billion. Larry Ellison, north $400 billion. The top 20 families, richest families on the world, including the Saudi royal family, they're all collectively worth maybe 10% of the truth that I have. We have the $71 trillion truth. Now, how did we get that $71 trillion truth? I've been a producer for a long time. I made a long form television series called The Con, which is a long form investigative series that did what the Department of Justice, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the state AGs, the SEC, and many other regulatory agencies that have tens of thousands of employees. They have roughly a $90 billion a year budget. This is before Doge. There's been some changes, I'm sure, at the DOJ and the FBI, of course. But as I mentioned earlier about the assassination attempt of Donald Trump and the parallel to the FBI saying nothing to see here, the whole purpose of the FBI is to thwart criminality or to protect or this and that, and they have giant resources to do so. If the FBI decided to look into the past of this person and make it all, transparent with an honest DOJ, trust me, we'd know a lot more about the assassination attempts than we currently do. But the same can be said of the largest criminal conspiracy and cover up in history, which was the 2008 great financial crisis. That didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened because of all of those things I said before. It was a continuation. Think of an epidemic. It just morphs and morphs and morphs. It gets bigger, bigger in all these elements. And so ultimately, when I pulled on the threads and went on this incredible journey, we did the work, the investigation, where we ended up with the whistleblowers and the top legal experts, and then we got the evidence, then we got the legal evidence, I mean, the papers, all of the things that make up the entirety of what I'm trying to tell you. And then I went even further to discover that in the aftermath, I think everybody knows that we spent a lot of money to float the system. We don't know how much we spent to float the system, nor do we understand that all of it was illegal. So what we effectively did was we provided tens of trillions of dollars, literally for free, to the largest racketeering enterprise in the history of the world. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, it's our financial system. Basically, Roseanne likes to say it's criminals in suits with no shame. But you might be asking yourself on a Sunday, this is literally trillions of times bigger than Watergate, right? Trillions of times bigger than Watergate. It involved hundreds of millions of victims. We're talking tens of thousands of people in on it. And you're talking to what, just two regular folks that have got the entirety of the story. Now, did I just poof that into existence? No, it took me years and thousands of hours and millions of dollars. But did we get it? Oh, yeah. But once we got to the point where nobody could hear it because the Borg of the algorithm and everybody else is going to make sure nobody knows the truth, just like we're never going to know the truth about who tried to shoot, well, probably JFK, but at the same time, all things Trump, the Supreme Court said that quid pro quo is illegal, of course. They said, but you got to prove it. Well, who proves it if the Department of Justice and the FBI and the SEC and so on down forward are all corrupt? You don't. So what do? You got to go to the people who know how to do it, who've done it, who continue to do it, and we've got many more answers that will go forward. But thanks for letting me riff on that. Let's turn it to you, Jen B. What are your thoughts and your reactions to the conversation so far?
It's I'm just it's hard to describe really, Patrick, because there's so much coming in all different directions. I mean, we have the situation with the military, we have the gerrymandering, um, we have the bullshit going on in Congress, and just I just I'm just glad you guys are here for starters. So, I mean, because I wouldn't have anybody to fall back on, and I'm just really glad that I got to see you guys on Blue Sky. And it's just, um, I'm just thankful, but I'm so pissed about what's going on. And we talked about this kind of a few shows ago about kind of feeling out of control, but we just got to make sure that we spread the word. And so it's just, and everybody, and that's why when I see your segments or something that Roseanne will post, I share it and I call you guys my modern day Woodward and Bernstein because, I mean, you guys. So, but my reaction is back to answer the question, I'm just perpetually pissed. I wake up every day. What the fuck did he do today? Excuse my language there, Kathy. But
I
anyway,
don't care.
I don't
I
know. So I'm I'm religious, but I'm not. Okay, so I'm kind of borderline atheist. So anyway, I just I just know we need to pull, and I'm thankful, pull together, and I'm thankful for the judges, for the other law abiding people, attorneys that are actually stepping in and trying to jam up the wheels of treasonous Trump and his band of reverse Robin Hoods. That's what I call them. I also call him a grifting shit gibbon. I mean, I have all kinds of names for him, but we need more people like Mark Kelly and more people like Patrick, more people like Roseanne. We need more judges that are going to step up. But the thing that pisses me off, I think, almost as much as just Trump being allowed to steal a second election, is these judges and these attorneys trying to do so much good are being just sidelined because of SCOTUS. They're being, because of the Supreme Court. So it's just like they're trying so hard. We just need more people like them, like us, to break through. Just enough of this shit, because it's coming to a boiling point. It's coming to a head. But I don't, I just hope that I mean, we have to, not hope, we have to come out the other side. We have to come through. We have to make it. We have to stop this corruption and all of these murders and the stuff going on with the military, with the Hagsworth. Um, I don't know if I said his name right, but bombing these
Hegseth.
boats in the Caribbean. I mean, that's just insane. That's that's so illegal. These people need to be thrown in the brick. And we
Tried for
hopefully,
murder.
pardon?
hmm
They need to be tried for murder. It's murder. I mean, he
Yeah,
didn't get any
exactly.
congressional. He didn't declare war. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah, so I'm just there's so much stuff. I mean, I could just go down a whole long list of just the bullshit that we have to deal with every day. And I really think they're just doing a lot of this on purpose because they want to tire us. They want to just have us so exhausted that we're just like, okay, this is the new normal. We can't let ourselves fall into that trap. And many people are. And I'm just like, I'm just so angry about it all.
I
Patrick,
love it. Please continue. I'm so sorry.
no, that's okay. Like I said, I don't know where to start. Then I'm going to trail off because I'm going to think about another thing that he fucked up. And then like the Epstein thing. The guy is coming out of everything unscathed. When is he going to be held accountable? What? And then the Fulton County, did you hear about that? They dropped the election interference case
Oh yeah,
in
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Georgia,
Of
the
course.
Fulton County.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, fuck, that just pissed me off. So, is he ever going to be held accountable for anything? I want him just, a lot of people, I mean, his obituary is going to be the most anticipated in the whole world. People, including myself, are going to, I mean, the earth's going to move from the beat of our dancing feet. It's just going to shake and move. But I'm kind of hoping that happens like sooner than later because really, I don't think he's going to be held accountable. I just want him like pushing up daisies. I mean, that's I wake, I get a news alert and it's like, is it today? Am I going to be a happy camper today? And it's just, when you wish that on somebody like every day, he's just wreaking havoc on everybody's, not just financial, but on our physical and our mental states. And we have to stop it, Patrick. And you too, you are the answer. We just need more people to push it. We need more people with influence, more people with power that are going to just, all right, let's steamroll. Let's just steamroll ahead and get rid of them. Just
Let me.
defeat them all.
I loved everything you said. That was really cool and really fun to hear you because it was so authentic and genuine. I felt like the hair on the
Right.
back of my neck standing up because you're speaking for me, right? And of course,
Mhm.
there's much more. And I thought you really, really cleverly responded to that in the moment, which is not easy to put the right words together because it is one of those things you wake up in the morning and you're kind of like, okay, now what? And then it's like, okay, where's the footing? But who's going to hold them in a. See, what you just addressed is the reason we do what we do. We created the paradigmatic solution that is requisite the corruption. It is flood the zone in reverse completely. Now, the problem, however, is what you both identify. And this is what we've got to contend with. And I want to move this to you, Roseanne, but I want to just say this as a tee up to you because we both know this inside and out. So, again, last Tuesday or the Tuesday before that was a sea shift. We know there are millions of Americans that are going to show up. Okay. Now, we also know MAGA is going to do everything they can, especially in Republican controlled states with state AGs, to do everything they can to muck it up. And then we're going to be faced again with the Electoral College and potentially
Right.
all sorts of like swing state bullshit, which goes into your scenario vis-a-vis what happened with Fonnie Willis. And of course, that's a RICO charge. And we happen to be experts in RICO. Okay. That's everything we do is about RICO because that's how we put it all together. You got to understand the predicate acts. You got to do the investigations. You got to have all of the evidence. And that's the Woodward Birdstein analogy and so forth. And it's like, again, but why are you talking to us? And again, and I love what Kathleen said at the outset. You know, the corollary in your article, Kathy, was so extraordinarily timed for me because I say to people all the time, people reach out to me and they're like, "Who are you? I don't know who
Mm.
you are. I don't
Hmm.
recognize your voice. Millions of people don't know who you are. Why do I want to listen to you? It sounds like you're Trump. You're a Trumpian like person that's going to dictate to me some
Right.
version of something that I don't understand. So that's
Hmm.
social media. That's a complete response. They don't know the tens of thousands of hours that I put in. They don't know the millions of dollars that we've done. They don't even know what the stuff was because we got squashed just like Stormy Daniels got squashed by David Pecker and the National Enquirer, and that's what led to the 34 felony convictions. But they got quashed by fucking National Enquirer, and that was mainstream news the whole time. We got quashed by the people who own the system. Okay, we got quashed by the biggest of the big, the ones that control everything. Of which, by the way, it's been really fascinating and funny for me to see Donald Trump say, "I'm going after Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase for Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to name names. We're going to talk about Clinton and all things in the Epstein files, and of course Larry Summers and all of these other guys." Yes, I'm sure they're all completely up to their eyeballs of insanity in the Epstein files, and that's just the entry point. What we have is the other side of it, which is the hundreds of millions of people that got set up and raped and pillaged in a honeypot operation using similar tactics, just replace need for sex for need for shelter. And I could go on with the analogy, but the way the system works, okay, and it is a system. It's a system, just like if you're going to build a ship, you're going to build a plane, you're going to build an elevator, you're going to build a crankshaft, whatever. It's a system. And there are things, the way the things work. And if you don't understand how those work, you can't see the forest for the trees. So you can't fix it. Again, we're the black box, but with a solution. We're the black box of the dead American dream wrought by Let's use a biblical reference. I'm probably not thinking of the best one, but you reap what you sow, right? And what comes to mind in your biblical teachings that would signify just immense, um, shall we say, betrayal to God, something along those lines.
Patrick, can I cut you off for a second?
Yeah.
Speaking of the Epstein files, now treasonous Trump did an about face on releasing the files. I have two theories about that. Pam Bondi has been sitting on these files for who knows how long. Now, I think they have the technology to scrub his name from those files. So that's why he's like, okay, yeah, I'll agree to release them and sound all gun ho if you promise to scrub my name from these files. Also, they're doing the stall tactic because the people who voted to release the files, well, hello, they're not going to release the files because Bondi has them, and there's an investigation of these so-called Democrats that are supposedly in the files, which I'm sure there's Democrats and Republicans in there, but if they can, and I just asked this question over and over again, if in England if they can demote, if you want to call that, strip somebody of all their royalty, all of their whatever, I don't know what you call their standings. What do you call that?
Well,
Um,
you're on it. It's like what
Titles.
happened to your
the
titles,
title.
exactly.
Okay.
To
If they
Philip,
can
right?
strip somebody of that, and then they got the president of Brazil that just fucked up so bad, and he's spending fucking time in prison. They did to him what we should have done to Trump. But we didn't because I'm going to blame Merrick Garland. Fuck Merrick Garland. He fucking sat on his hands because he didn't want to take a political side to this stuff. And it's just all these fuck ups of these people not having the spine to go through and carry this shit through. And then poor Jack Smith with the stuff going on with all the documents found at Mar-a-Lago, it's just like he got stonewalled by that corrupt judge. I mean, what the fuck? It's just like this. Why can't we be like Brazil and just that
I'm
dude
seeing-
should have been packing fucking years. You know what I mean? Years
Well,
ago.
it's amazing that you say that too, because again, Brazil was the face of global corruption for a long time. I mean, I know stuff in Brazil and Argentina where they were the highest sales of helicopters on the planet because the rich people lived up in the highest buildings. They could never go down to the streets because they would get kidnapped and have their fingers chopped off. That's how bad the corruption was in Brazil and Argentina for most of our lives. And now they're the ones we're looking up to. It's
Yeah,
like
I
that's
know.
how bad. So
Wow.
let's turn this over to Roseanne. What's your reason to some of these
because
wonderful?
I'll forget. Okay. See, I'm old. I'm only old chronologically. Okay. I look in the mirror, I see 25. Patrick
Two.
said, even though I'm 76. Anyway, when I look pretty good, eh?
You look great. You look great.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Okay. So I'm
Me either.
Tell them why. By the way, tell them why because
I like your
this
dog, Kathy.
I
Thank
do
you.
too. Beautiful dog in the background.
I
But
I lost my Quincy Bency. He died on September 21st.
so
Oh,
sorry, so sorry,
I miss him.
Roseanne. Roseanne, I always say
so
the truth. When you have the truth, you're bulletproof. But you took it to a next level. What else did you discover when you have the truth?
it's like I'm the fountain of youth. Okay. This is what's come to me. And I'm not shitting. Okay.
hmm
I've I moved from Chicago to where I'm at in Nevada 30 years ago. I stayed in one place, one condo for 30 years. And then the last couple of years, I moved here, there, back and forth, and now I'm in another place. But when people see me who haven't seen me for 5 years, 10 years, maybe 15 years, they say, Roseanne, what the hell did you do to yourself? Okay. you look so much better than you did, because I used to work for the city of Boulder City, and I had a regular TV show, and so everybody in town, little town, knew me. Okay. When Patrick said about that woman who said to him, "Well, who are you?" Okay. Very recently, I went to a place in Boulder City, the senior center, that I used to be the frickin' president of. Okay. I know probably, well, let's just say a lot of people in town, and I wrote for the newspaper for 25 years. So I go to the senior center to ask them, we want to use the senior center to have a Boulder City community dinner for everybody in Boulder City that I've been doing for years so that nobody has to be alone on Christmas. I don't want people to eat alone. Okay. So I go over there making the case with my friend. Woman next to me says, "Well, who the hell are you? Why should I trust you?" And once again, I go through the whole bit. They were ready to take a vote until she said, "Who am I?" Okay. Well, all the other people in the room looked around like, "You don't know who Roseanne is?" Be that as it may, I'm pissed, right? I'm pissed. They don't take a vote. We go out of the room. As we go out of the room, I say to my friend Deb, "Screw them. We are not having this dinner here. We don't need them." Okay? That's the position that we come from. If you don't want to watch, read, feel, understand what it is that we're giving you for your own benefit, for the benefit of your grandchildren. They're always saying, "Oh, I want to do this for my grandchildren." Bullshit. You don't want to do it for anybody because check this out. First thing on Blue Sky this morning, you know how you see all the things that are hot? What's the first six things that are hot? Sports. They ain't looking at no fucking politics. They ain't looking at ICE. They ain't looking at Hegseth. They ain't looking at Trump. They're looking at sports. Okay? So guess what? I see headlines. I've watched headlines since I've been 10 years old. When I said to my grandmother, "Graham," because I used to have to work in her store, I says, "Graham, how come all the headlines on the newspapers are the same? They all get together and have a meeting? How does this work? Who makes up all the head? Who picks the news? Who does it? Are they all?" And see, that goes along with what one of our new untouchables, who you haven't seen on YouTube. Well, he is in a YouTube. His name is Tom Murphy. He's a law enforcement officer. He was the head of the law enforcement body undercover that got they got the Mark Dan, who's in the new Untouchables now, was the attorney general in Ohio who got the only RICO conviction in the country against all these shadow banks, these in the dark, in the shadows, selling to this one and that one. But anyway, so Tom Murphy says his famous line, he's got a couple of great lines that I always think about. When I asked, how come all the headlines in the newspaper are the same? It fits perfectly in with what Tom Murphy, the police officer, said. He goes, "Who do they go to lunch with?" Think about it. Think about who do all these freaking criminals lunch with, party with, Jeffrey Epstein with, P. Diddy with? Okay. Who do they go to lunch with? They are the criminals in suits with no shame. Okay. And what do? Another Tom Murphyism. It's theft. Plain and simple. It ain't rocket science. It's racketeering. Plain and simple. So I look at all this stuff. I'm on social media. I talk to people in parking lots. I talk to them. I smile at people going in and out of the bathroom in the store. I mean, I'll talk to anybody. So I'm like super focused. I'm pissed, but I've been pissed a long time. I've been pissed before he was born. Okay. So when I met him, I was already primed. I already saw the corruption. What does he give me? He gives me the con. Boom. You got to feel it. You can't know all the details that he knows that quickly. You got to feel it. Okay. Kathy, I'm feeling that you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, you feel it. If you don't feel it,
Mm-hmm.
you ain't gonna stop. And you know what? I don't care about the other people. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
screw them. I gotta focus. You
Well,
don't have to have hope to win, because I know
mm-hmm.
we are. You don't have to have hope to persevere.
Right. So can I interject here a little bit? Can you guys hear me?
Go, go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got
Oh, sorry. I always feel like for some reason I'm not being heard.
No, no, you're good. Clap them,
The
Kathy.
one thing that I love actually about all three of you, but I first met, really didn't meet, but was listening to Patrick, is I wrote a piece on Substack. You might want to go back and look at it, Patrick, where I kind of did the same thing that you did, but with a totally different subject, which is I came up with this plan or this idea that I was very concerned about the fact that we have a malignant narcissist who's probably a psychopath as president of the United States of America, which is the most powerful position in the world. That has to be stopped. You know, it would be considered unconstitutional by some people, but I think we need to, stop that. So what the reason I'm tying this into what you're saying, Rose, and is that it occurred to me that the people who are on this side of the issue, like Patrick and you two lovely ladies, is that you have empathy. You can feel for other people. I know I watched the way that you are monitoring this conversation, Patrick. Every other guy I know would be totally dominating the conversation and interrupting these women and whatever. My boyfriend just yelled, "It's not true," from the other room. That's funny. Um, he just interrupted. But ha ha. But anyway, you know what I mean? And you have that kind. So what I'm trying to say is that I think you're right, Rose. You have to have people who have the sensibility to have compassion and empathy towards everyone, regardless of, you know, their station in life or their education or lack thereof or whatever, Um, the one thing that I want to mention though, ladies, and also to you, Patrick, is that the reason I like the Clean New Deal is that it's beyond Trump. Trump's going to be toast at some point, okay? The whole administration's going to be toast at some point.
Oh, I
But the
hope so
mon
soon.
but the system that still creates the monster is there. And so that's where we need to focus so the short term, Donald Trump, disaster. but yet so you asked me before, I'm going to circle back to that question you asked me. I was thinking of Judas Iscariot. And I'm going to give you a very controversial view on this, Patrick, and Rose and Jen. So Judas Wright betrays. By the way, the story of turning over the tables and all that happens right before Jesus is crucified, right? In that story. And Judas betrays Christ and turns him in, basically. And so he gets captured, he arrested, and of course, we know the rest of the story. And where he is crucified with two other criminals, and it's a beautiful story, of one says, Jesus, will you remember me? Will you remember me? And of course, they get to go to heaven with him, which is poignant if you think about that. But the point of the whole story of Judas is that without him, there would be no story of Christ and the resurrection. So it was as if he was somewhat needed. And so what I am trying to say is that even though none of us like Trump, and I don't either, right? It's odd in that it's almost like all the corruption and all that stuff is kind of boiled to the top.
It's
and now
the dust coming out of the boil.
Yes, exactly. It's like we have to, and now we all see it. So
Right.
Even though we don't like it, and even though we would rather not have it, I think that it was in an odd way. It's kind of a fortuitous thing because now people are like,
Destiny.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, we got some corruption here. Because I liked one time when Patrick pointed out, and I got to tell you, the sacred cow in the Democratic Party is Barack Obama. And I worked for him, by the way. I worked on his campaign. But I was very disillusioned. And I also want to disclose a couple of things. My cousin is Larry Krasner, who is the district attorney of Philadelphia. He's my first cousin. And he is a very progressive DA and anti-corruption, just like you guys. I also have a cousin that I'm very close with who is in the banking and the financial system, but in Chicago, where Barack Obama is from, right? And my cousin Dave told me that he was put up by the banks.
He was what?
Put up
What did
by
he
the
say?
banks.
Oh,
He was.
okay.
Can I address that real quick? That's
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's fantastic.
When you said that, Patrick, I was like,
Yeah.
yes.
So look, man, this is kind of a scary scenario, how far these guys think downstream. And by these guys,
Well,
I'm talking about the people in power. Now,
It's Gavin Newsom.
well,
Now.
yeah, okay, fair enough. Because who was Gavin Newsom connected to? Well, it was the Gettys. The Gettys are the big money of San Francisco, which goes back to oil, blah blah blah. And this is the rift that we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay. No, and I loved what he did with all of his, Raz and Trump
Yeah,
and
he's
everything
not a
else.
bad
And
guy.
I prop out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to first address Obama, and I want to hit all of the stuff you just addressed because it's extremely important. So in our work, a lot of work that I haven't been able to bring to the fore because we got quashed by the biggest, power apparatuses in the world. Okay, I'm not exaggerating. I'm talking BlackRock quashed us.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's a reason for that. Okay, but beyond that, so I kept scratching my head about Obama the whole time from a standpoint that I knew during the great financial crisis who he put into his cabinet positions. And I knew who they were and where they came from. And I'm talking about all things, off the cuff of all things Clinton by way of, Robert Rubin. But Robert Rubin is interchanged with Larry Summers, which is right in the middle of a truth bomb that I did the other day because all this information on Larry Summers and Epstein. And more importantly, because of what you just said out of Chicago, Jamie Dimon ends up in Chicago. He's part of it. There's a big part of like the Pritzkers and the Crowns, and there's other big billionaire forces and finance and everything else that
Yep.
he was definitely, and I guarantee you, Oprah Winfrey is a part of that
Oh yeah.
situation.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
so that feeds into us, for example. Okay, so Obama, when he was in front of the country after the great financial crisis, first of all, like I said, you get all of the people that created the financial crisis back into positions of power in his cabinet. Okay,
Right.
all the ones that created everything that we're talking about. He put them back in after he rode a populist wave of being, I like to say platitudes, right? Change we can believe in. Okay, well, change what exactly and how, right? Especially for a tactician like myself who understands systems. What are we talking about? We're talking about Bush. We're talking about Iraq War. We're talking about, all of the lobbyists that have access to power and everything else. I knew all of those elements of what he was in, of his campaign, and I thought he was the next incarnation of FDR. I did. I thought he was going to come in. He was going to clean house. He's a constitutional law expert. He's going to create a new deal, and we're going to live happily after all. He's what history's calling for. Here's this, biracial genius guy who came up in the system. My God, he gets, from Hawaii to end up in what he was. Where did he go undergrad before he went to Harvard? Doesn't matter. Anyway, he ends up in
University
Harvard.
of Chicago, wasn't it?
Well, he did
Did he go to?
eventually, but I know he was a forced spit in I think Fresno of all things beforehand. Anyway,
Mm.
there's something in the West Coast. It was kind of an interesting corollary, and then he ends up being the editor of the Crimson, which is of course as highfalutin as they get in terms of students at Harvard pedigree, right? I mean, you're at that level. You're pretty much into. You want to go be a publisher at Newsweek. You want to be, you know what I mean? That might be the next phase, for example, and or you would be, they'd roll out the red carpet for that to happen. That's that kind of what happens out of those Ivy League situations. And so right away in the con, and I'm teeing this up because I want to show you guys a couple of things, and I'm going to bleed it into the Clean New Deal that answers everything that you just talked about. So Barack Obama comes in, he puts all the same people in positions of power that created the problem. He's just a fantastic orator. He's telling us what we want to hear. He's focusing on healthcare, right? Healthcare was a huge situation at the time. Obviously, things were a bit weird. I was really interested in how he was going to handle the Iraq War. Eventually, we end up getting Osama bin Laden. Okay, that's really fascinating, right? But what
Mm-hmm.
happens? What happens as it relates to the great financial crisis? Anybody
Well, the
want to
bank's
tell me?
out.
Okay, but not only did he bail the banks out, did anybody go to prison? Why?
No.
What does anybody know here on this call? What caused the 2008 great financial crisis again? You can just give me kind of like a very simple version of it, but what caused the crisis?
Was it the housing bubble?
That's certainly part of it. That was kind of the primer of the whole thing.
Enron?
How about you, Jen B? I see you're thinking. You have a
Yeah,
quality.
yeah, I'm thinking, but it's just, well, Kathy mentioned something, but I just know there's some big money people that are corrupt, and I'm thinking
Okay.
that it's the housing and the banking. The
Okay,
housing and the bank.
perfect. So let me ask you. So it was a long time ago. So, I mean, we're going back in our memories. That's like what, 14,
Hmm.
15, 16, 17 years ago, right? Except for, wait a second. How long ago was Epstein?
How what?
30.
Yeah, how long ago was Epstein?
Oh,
Is Epstein news now?
Right, but do you know that and I get this from watching Zev. Do you know that Epstein was involved in the Iran-Contra scandal?
Yeah, me and Zev are like this because see, Zev is the other side of the coin of what I am. Okay, so
Right.
Zev does the long, and I'm not gonna redress because I would encourage everybody who's watching this, please discover Zev Shalev on Substack and check
Oh
out The
my
Greatest
God.
Highest. It's one of the most magnificent pieces of literature. Well, literature. I mean, it's a journalistic piece, but it really gives us exactly what Trump is and why Trump is, and it involves the Russians in a very serious way. But to answer my own question to you guys, to try to make this point, to get through this, because there's so much information and I don't want to keep everybody too long today because we all have stuff to do, but it's incredibly important to get people to understand these points. First and foremost, the great financial crisis was the largest racketeering enterprise, which means RICO, in the history of the world, which is organized crime, bar none. bar none, monumentally bigger than anything that's ever happened in history. Okay. Yes, it starts with the housing bubble, but it goes into derivatives and insurance bubbles. It goes through all litany, shape, or form of the financial industry, goes into what we call derivatives. A $4.5 trillion housing bubble becomes a $900 trillion global catastrophe because of derivatives and collateralized debt obligations and all manner, shape, or form of what we affectionately call a casino, financial system. But if you sell lies, for example, if you lie on a document, if you lie to a client, if you lie to coerce somebody into a deal that they don't know anything about, would your gut say that that might be criminal?
Mhm.
What about you, Jen B?
Um, Yeah, it is, but it's criminal if you lie, but but what's going to be done about it?
Okay, but yeah, it's so it first and foremost by the actual criminal system where we adjudicate laws based on different degrees of scenarios with different accounting. Like if you steal gas at your local 7-Eleven, you get $100, you take off. Maybe you get, if you're poor, maybe you get hit with a $2,500 fine, and maybe you go to jail for 6 months, something along those lines, right? If you steal, I don't know. If you walk into a bank, you rob a bank, you walk out with, I don't know, let's say 10 million bucks, right? You think if you get nailed and you get popped and the evidence is there and the prosecution comes down to you, do you think you might go to jail?
If if you're well off,
Okay, but now
no,
I'm going to
no,
make now I'm going to make this point. I'm going to make this point. So if you steal tens of trillions of dollars, what happens to you?
Nothing.
Nothing. What are you talking about? Everything. They give you the keys to the kingdom. You own the whole system. So
And
this is what we're trying to tell you. What they did was they gave tens of trillions of dollars to the largest criminal apparatus in history that ultimately bought the Supreme Court, bought
Oh yeah.
Congress, completely owned media. And what are we in the midst of now? They're Frankenstein, right? Go ahead.
we get the book thrown at us, but the people that you described, they're above the law.
Right. They can rape children, can't they? Can't they
yeah,
rape children? Aren't we
and they
seeing that
get
all over the
a
place?
get out of jail free card.
Well, no,
And
they can literally
Exactly
rape.
like Trump did by
That's
winning
what.
this election is
Uh,
fucking get out of jail free card.
okay, that's called corruption. All of that together collectively is called corruption. Now, if you're Kathy, you would write a beautiful soliloquy about, well, when you corrupt your soul, well, there's going to be internal damnation, is the idea, right? But for those of us who are kind of question, things, I love that stuff, and I'm a consequential guy now. Okay, I'm a democracy guy now, and I'll speak in biblical terms because I know right from wrong. But I'm just going to open up a couple of things real quick here. So the first thing that I want to address that Kathy brought up, I thought it was great. I had posted this morning. I said the greatest thing Trump has ever done is take the corruption out of the shadows to make it in the open in a way that spares no one. All the
Right.
opportunists who've made a living in silos, allowing the billionaires to overrun our system. And now
Hmm.
everyone is in the crosshairs because the illusion has been shattered. So to your
Right.
point, that's kind of how I look at it, right? So now I want to share my screen, and I want to show you guys a couple of things real quick because it's also for the audience, but just give me 1 second here. I'm going to do a screen share. And then I'm going to go to this first. Now, Kathy, I don't believe you've seen any of my work, The Con. It doesn't sound like it. Kathy,
Sorry,
you're
I was
on.
I was
Yeah,
muted.
yeah. Have you
I
have you ever seen any
I
of The
I
Con?
have not. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
Well, I'm glad you have it. If you don't mind, can you see my screen on your screen, by the way?
I could
Yep.
see it.
Okay. I'm gonna hit play. This is just the trailer to season one of The Con, first and foremost. Okay.
I can't hear it, by the way.
I don't have any audio, Patrick, on this.
Oh, bummer. Wait a second. Let me see something here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
I
we
can
can hear
hear you.
you.
We
Oh,
just can't hear the
you couldn't hear hear the
we
video?
can't hear your
No.
piece.
Ah, bummer. Well, I'm gonna have to
Too
send it to
bad it's
you.
not closed captioning. Sorry.
No, that's really interesting though, all things considered, because it's kind of almost like biblical from a standpoint that this is the truth I'm showing you that answers all the questions you have, but you can't hear it. We're staying within the theme
Well,
of
at least we can bookmark it to make sure we all watch it.
no, well, no,
And then
I will.
share the crap out of it.
Yeah, well, I'll provide it to you. But see, here's the problem. When I told you guys at the outset that we've done the work, okay, that did what the $90 billion a year apparatus of our government didn't do, and you can't see it. I'm gonna just kind of fast forward and see if I can do this. Okay, so shit, I'm gonna try to experiment with something since you can't hear it because I can hear it. I wonder if I took it. Eh, let me try to do this. If I take it off of, let me see here. If I take off my Bluetooth, so
Can you put your put closed
hey,
captioning up on it
if I can,
so that
well,
way we can read
let me just ask
what
you.
we watch, or is that just for your viewership or whatever?
I don't know how, but let me just see real quick. Tell me if you guys can hear anything now. Okay. I'm neither an economist or a scholar. Can you all hear that?
Yep.
How about you, Jim?
Barely, but I wear a cochlear implant, so
Okay.
I don't hear.
Let
And
me. I took it off Bluetooth, so that can help. So let's take a look at this, and I'll play this real quick first. Okay.
okay, all right.
Just an average American who lost my home and very nearly my family to foreclosure when the market imploded. And I've spent almost every day since trying to find out why. Once the dust settled, it quickly became clear that my story was no different than millions of other Americans. We all thought that we were alone. We all thought that we'd failed. But none of us really knew why.
With a gun in her hand, Polk apparently shot herself in the chest as deputies were knocking on her door with eviction papers in hand.
Dramatic increase in mortgage fraud cases was the canary in the mine. It was the warning.
This was money chasing people. This was not somebody looking for a loan.
It was all designed to maximize profits for all of the different players.
The person who sold you a loan made more money if they sold you a higher rate loan.
They were sold a lot.
They're selling to their very clients these loans that they know are a disaster.
I lost my home, not because of money, because of fraud.
I don't believe Addie Polk took out the mortgage on her home. I don't believe she signed any documents.
They just generated all this junk, took home huge bonuses, and then when it collapsed, they said, oh, not us.
This notion that the financial crisis was there wasn't fraud and there wasn't crime is absolutely wrong. It's dead.
They were targeting, in many cases, minorities.
We were waiting for the leadership to say, go. That never happened.
The investigation was suppressed.
This was all part of the same puzzle that was falling apart.
This is the largest conspiracy of lies in the history of the world.
This investigation has just begun. Okay, now I want to just discuss that for a second. Then I'm going to show you some more stuff here. So first of all, just so you guys know, and I'm going to do a stop screen share first, just so I can have everybody on screen here at the same time. So what you saw in that trailer was a couple of very important things. First of all the people that we heard from soundbite wise, one guy who said this was, the first guy we saw was the director of investigations for the FBI, the top guy. Two guys were in front of him, Bob Mueller and James Comey. He was the third in partner, okay? Moving forward through that, then we got the former director of the Department of Justice, white collar fraud. That's Paul Peltier. So he's been at the Department of Justice for 3 decades. He was the nation's go-to guy to break up La Cosa Nostra. He took care of the Enron era frauds and the WorldCom frauds. The number one guy at the Department of Justice, in addition to a bunch of team, but the highest of the high, just were telling you what was going down. Okay. Then we had Addie Polk. Addie Polk is this African American woman who shot herself in the chest 5 times because she was being evicted from a house that she had lived in for 4 decades. But as we discovered and we showed to the American people, there was a conspiracy of folks that stole her house using a technique called, it's using documentation fabrication, but it's straw buying, okay, which was really happening in a grand way with minorities, particularly elderly women, okay? So we think about young women being raped by the Epstein scenario with these pigs of disaster, right? And you were talking about empathy, Kathy. Well, here's Addie Polk, an elderly American woman who achieved the American dream with her husband against all odds. She had actually come from Alabama in the Great Migration up to Ohio, got a piece of the American dream, lived in her whole life, only to have it stolen from her to where she could only turn a gun on her to commit suicide instead of go live homeless in the streets. Okay. They murdered the American dream. Who's they? All of these guys we're talking about. Okay. They didn't just rape a bunch of women, they murdered the American dream because they did this above the law. Now, here's something that's really fascinating. You're going to hear Donald Trump, and we all know, I think most of us who've watched Donald for a while, realize that every time he projects an accusation, it's because he's guilty of it, right?
Yes.
Claim and implicate. So what we're going to see is a whole lot of discussion from the Don. I like to call him Don the Con Rico Pedo Pig. And he's going to be projecting all sorts of documentation fraud and forgeries. He's going to be talking about that with Larry Summers. He's going to be talking about that with J.P. Morgan Chase. He's going to be talking about that about President Barack Obama. That's pretty freaking fresh coming from a guy who's probably been forging documents for the last 4 decades. Which, by the way, if you watched our Truth Bombs, we have that information and then some through Donald Trump's most hated journalist, a guy by the name of David K. Johnson. But I want to show you now this. So think about this in terms of documentation fraud, okay? Can you guys see my screen?
Paper that was necessary.
Can you guys see my screen?
To see you, Patrick.
Okay, sorry. I got to do a screen share. Okay, do you guys see my screen?
Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
See it.
In May 2010, where there were entire streets that had foreclosure signs.
You had millions of people asking for help on their loans to companies that had no interest in helping them.
We were being lied to. City mortgage employees continually lied to us over the phone. When I asked them specific questions, they would never answer the questions.
My husband had a spinal cord injury, rendering him paralyzed. So Wells Fargo offered us a loan modification. They didn't return phone calls. They provided me misinformation. People were being paid to lie to us, paid to disappear, and they never had any intention of helping us.
Several employees from Bank of America were given Target and Best Buy gift cards for foreclosing on homeowners.
These were just document mills that would just sign any piece of paper that was necessary in order to convince a judge to let him take the house.
All of the documents that were signed by these robo-signers sit behind me. It's 39,000. They were all fraudulent. Banks, they were a front. They were a front for criminal enterprise.
Our whole regulatory system was a failure when it came to this issue.
Jury was kept from seeing my aunt's exculpatory evidence. The evidence that was pro Barbara got shut out.
I heard from a former Chief Justice, you know that the outcome is dependent upon where the judge believes he's been placed in the revenue stream. Who does him the biggest financial favors? So in other words, you're saying that they're bought off.
At the time that I was running, I challenged my opponent not to take money from any banks that got government bailout money. And I did get a call from Washington telling me to be careful because there were a lot of people who got that money who were in my party.
Where people can get away with stuff, they will. And the best place to get away with stuff is have a big corporation that's traded on the stock exchange that gives a lot of money to lobbyists and politicians and make it so complicated that nobody can ever figure out what the fuck you did. And you win.
If there is an alarm to be sounded in the aftermath of 2008, it is when you have too much wealth in too few hands, the rule of law begins to collapse.
All the Americans who are still out of work, got low wages, students, underwater homes. All these problems are a direct result of the financial crash.
The failure to rescue the American working and middle class in the Great Recession, that has set us on the trajectory to where we find ourselves today.
It might be Main Street and Wall Street, the big banks and real people.
I'm not supposed to win. Borrower's not supposed to win. That is this game, is if you've got the money, you can make them all, or you can buy them all.
No individual faced any accountability for any of this.
I have a new definition for the perfect crime. Perfect crime is a crime that involves everybody.
Do you know what the American people would do if those leaders of those banks were indicted? It would send a message loud and clear that the game's over. And we let them off the hook. We let them off the hook.
The only way it's going to change is the same way it was affected, which was millions of people have finally fucking had it.
So I'm going to move through this, but before I do, I want to ask you guys. Wait, I see a chat here. Does somebody have to split? Let's just double check.
No, I just asked a favor that something be edited out. Okay.
You never mentioned his name, but I can do that. But I'll go back. Yes. Okay.
I think I said his first name.
Yeah. So anyway.
All right. Anyway, never mind.
Basically, what you guys saw there was an insight into like I mentioned here, the largest criminal conspiracy and cover up in history. Now, what world did Donald Trump come from, guys?
Real estate.
Real estate. Okay. And so to the point of, this is how humongous this is. And this goes back to Zev Shalev, by the way, but just briefly. Yeah. Trump got bailed out a lot of times, even though he's had 6 bankruptcies, but he got bailed out a lot of times by the Russians. Where did that money go? Real estate.
Yeah.
What was he doing when he was the mainstay of NBC's The Apprentice, produced by Mark Burnett and everything that was all about? Well, they had a major show just basically normalizing Trump to the country. He was money laundering for the Russians for 20 plus years and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not to mention the Saudis. He said the Saudis are my favorite client and all that kind of stuff, right? So Don the Conrico pig obviously was couldn't get any loans from anybody because of all the shit that he was involved with. But who? Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank was a direct conduit to whom? Putin.
Mm-hmm.
Was also engaged with a gentleman by the name, I should say, let's just put it this way. This is what we know from Zev Shalev's work. So you guys have heard of, I know Kathy, you probably heard of it, but in general, you probably heard of Bear Stearns. Anybody remember that financial firm, Bear Stearns?
Hey, Patrick, for some reason, I'm having trouble hearing you now, and my volume's all the way up.
Okay, I might not be speaking as loud as I once was. Can you hear me a little bit better there?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So Bear Stearns was one of the top investment banks on the street, Wall Street, and one of the deals that they were involved with was known as liquid capital. Liquid capital was directly tied to Jeffrey Epstein, and incidentally, was the first thing bailed out when shit hit the fan in 2008. Okay, when Obama came in, for example, and they were all tied to the same stuff. Russia was flooding a lot of laundered money out of um, out of Russia into our markets vis-a-vis the same entrapment that would go and basically get people like Addie Polk involved with liar's loans that then ended up creating this calamity that blew up the entire world. And the people that got bailed out were all the people that executed it. And why were they able to get bailed out? Obama. And by the way, we show that in the con very clearly. And further to that point, you know, I had got, as you can see, and as I've shown you, we have access to the top people in the world. And that's what we did. And that's why I work with the New Untouchables every week. They're the top people in the world at this stuff. Okay. And so ultimately, the point that I wanted to make about, oh man, there's so many points that I want to make. I guess I'll just leave it at that for the moment. But I don't know why Roseanne jumped off, but I'm going to share my screen again because it's a little overwhelming, right? To think about this could happen to tens of millions of people where tens of trillions of dollars were looted to where all the bad guys got away with it and our entire legal system collapsed. That's a lot to contend with, isn't it? Because like you said, Kathy, at the beginning, how do you fight back? How do you fight back? Well, we need tens of millions of people to get out of their bubbles to understand that what we're providing is the information that the entire system hid so that everybody's in the dark running around in circles and they don't know the way forward. Because unfortunately, most of us live with the four walls of our universe, right? We don't go get a PhD or a master's, and we don't go to the top flight law school or top flight, fucking financial institution. That's not our bailiwick, right? We didn't go to a Top Gun school. We're not flying a 747. I mean, there's people who do that. There's brain surgeons, right? All of those people that do those jobs, they've got to go through years and years of schooling, and then they've got to be able to obviously get licenses and everything else. And that's why we call them professionals, right? But if they're crashing airplanes or if they're destroying all their patients or whatever, do they get rewarded for doing that? No. Why would our financial system be rewarded for it, right? And so why would people allow that to happen? So the system, why would they allow it to happen? That's the question to you, Jen. Why would the people in the DOJ, why would the people working in the parties, why would the people that know better not do anything?
Yeah, well, we talked a few shows ago about how some people are just too fearful. Maybe they feel like they don't have enough backup to try to punch through to expose the corruption. There's a lot of variables with it, Patrick. But
Kathy, what would you say? Why would they allow that to happen?
So you mean why would the system allow it to happen, or us? You mean like the judicial system?
Why would the system allow it to happen?
Because they're making money off of it. They're all getting paid off of it. They're getting kickbacks. They're getting rewarded for it.
What you're saying, it's perverse incentives first and foremost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And perversity.
I got the question wrong, Patrick. My bad. So go ahead.
No, you were good on that, but it's just overwhelming. As I'm trying to get to that point, and you expressed that brilliantly because it is overwhelming. But the question I have is, why would the professionals allow that to happen? And of course, Kathy just said it outright. Everybody knows that they got paid, right? So what we're trying to tell people is it's not rocket science; it's racketeering. This is the easiest to fix problem, except the worst problem of all: people who lie. Because
plus,
go ahead.
Plus, Patrick, the people that are above the law, they're not the people who are having the problems. I'm finding the trouble coming up with the right words for this, but they're above the law.
Well, that's why they would be called in, let's say, 17th century England, the aristocrats, right? Why did we have a revolution? Did we have a revolution so we could have a king 248 years later? We just had millions of people in the streets saying, no kings, man. But the biggest problem of all, because everybody has the four corners of their universe, right? The four walls of their existence. We go through our daily basis. We have our focus. We know what we know. But the thing is, when we have our issues that really trigger us too. And I thought, Jen, you really, really expressed beautifully how frustrating this stuff is because it comes at us left, right, and you just want them to die. Yeah, I'm down with you. I want to be there. I would rather see him go to jail and we take back all of his looted money personally, and then watch him in a fit of despair go down the tubes after the fact. That would be justice for me. But that would be the law, right? So, but what I'm trying to say to people is we have huge problems. We have problems with the environment. We have problems with systemic, racism in prisons. We have problems with education. We have problems with looting, our government so that we could basically do what? Destroy USAID that was helping people get, AIDS medicine, and now 600,000 people are dead as a result of that. I mean, nobody's putting two and two together that Elon Musk comes in with Doge. 9 months later, 600,000 people are dead. That's actually on the books. We know this number. Those are real figures. So, among other things. So, what I want to share with you guys is just real quick here, and we'll go through this. And I think I'm going to have Roseanne to guide us forward here. But what we need to do is, if we as a society are going to rebound from this problem, we have to collectively get behind those who have the truth. Okay? And
Hey, Patrick, can I say something real quick before you start the video?
Yeah.
I have a friend, and this, the death part, that I was saying about Trump dying first. I just want that because I don't think he's going to be held accountable, and nothing's going to be done. Well, hopefully it'll be done. It will be done, but okay, let me rephrase that. He's going to skate. He skated so far, so my frame of mind was we're not going to be rid of him. He's not going to be held accountable. He's not going to go to prison for anything. So do the world a favor and just like drop off the face of the earth, you freaking fat, flabby fucking shit gibbon. Come off the face of the earth, dude. We need to wash our hands of you and get our country back. Now, in talking about fear and stuff like that, and people afraid to, step forward and whatnot. I have a friend of mine. He lives in Minneapolis. I don't live too far from him. He's Mexican. His father's from Mexico, but he was born here. So he is like on the DL, on the down low because of ICE. The dude can't even, he's scared to like go out of his house, but he does. And it's just everything from all directions. And we're all so exhausted, but we just gotta freaking just push forward. And again, I thank you and I thank Roseanne because I don't think I'd have such a somewhat positive frame of mind if it wasn't for you too, that we are going to come out of this ahead.
We will.
Okay, sorry. Carry on, sir.
Can you guys hear me?
We can see the screen, Patrick. You want to go to the
well, I wasn't sure if I put myself on mute, but first of all, I want to say thank you for that, and I'll show you my shirt real quick because I think it's a great. So Roseanne and I had shirts designed and made, and this says, if you can see it, even though it's small, but it says, "This is a big ball of truth," and what we're doing is we're pushing the truth up the mountain, which are all lies against all the lies and all the things we're up against. But what we need are millions of people to join us so it's not so heavy, because when we push it over the top, it will become the largest bowling ball of justice in history to wipe out the pens of misery and tyranny down below. So thank you for that, Jen. But we do have a whole lot of visuals that encompass what it is that we're all about. But I just want to roll through this real quick, and then I'm going to toss it over to Roseanne to take us home. But
I want that shirt.
Thank you, and we'll show you how you can get it. So,
okay.
And the reason why I'm on the marquee here, guys, is not because I'm Jesus Christ, but because I have all the information. I really do. I have all the information, and I'm the only person on the planet that is willing to tell the information because, unfortunately, and this is what I was trying to trying to get you guys to really get your head around. Look, Obama knew better. All
Oh
of the
yeah.
people in the system knew better.
Mm-hmm.
They're very smart and equipped, but they all lie to us, just like Kathy said, because they got paid to lie. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The fact of the matter is, the system cannot work when you are being led by liars. Okay? And the media is a big part of that lie. They create confusion. They understand psychology. They understand algorithms. They understand how to befuddle us. They understand how to overwhelm us. So, again, it's going to take millions of us who aren't thinking to themselves, you know what, this guy Patrick Lovell, fuck that guy. He doesn't know shit. I'm sorry, I know a lot. And that doesn't make me better than you. It makes me a guy that will never relent until we win, because I can't stand this scenario of the diabolical betrayal of our country, first and foremost. Because I lay it out like this: we don't live in a democracy. We don't function as a capitalistic system. And I would love to engage any socialist out there that want to talk about this being capitalism. It's socialism for the fucking criminals. That's what I'm trying to tell you. First and foremost, the law is unequal. We all know that. We don't have separation of powers. Corruption rules everything. Millions are beginning to understand the threat of Project 2025 because of what we said earlier. Donald Trump is forcing this giant shit sandwich of misery, like waterboarding torture, down everybody's throats who hasn't gotten it. And you've got to circle around those who've got the truth, and we've got to become a force multiplier, because the Clean New Deal is democracy's answer. Now, I studied political science. I also studied journalism. I'm pretty well equipped with a certain degree of knowledge. I've been around the block. I'm 57 years old. I've worked at the highest levels of media. I know how things work, okay? That doesn't make me the smartest guy in the room, nor does it make me better than you. I just have a lot of information, and I'm trying to distill this into a way that millions of you can go, oh my God, I suddenly get it. And so the way we do that is we created the precepts of the Clean New Deal. Now, by the way, if you get to this and you want to study this and you go through, everything about us, how does this affect you, what the plan is moving forward, I'll talk about the precepts now. But for journalists especially, the white paper has details that have never been explored or exposed, not by the New York Times, not by the Washington Post, not by Congress, not by the Department of Justice. Right here, Federal Reserve Act 13.3, the information that is there is completely every aspect of what you want to see, to make that is completely bulletproof. It's the evidence, it's who did what, when, and how we did it, and all of the elements. It could take you a couple of days to go through this if you want to try to go through it, but I can assure you this is what the entirety of the system has hid from you. But to get there, you got to understand what is to be able to get to where we want to be. And on that note, I'm going to introduce it back to my friend Roseanne Rabiel-Amile, and I want you to walk us through the 4 questions and then the precepts.
Okay, Patrick, so click on what is qualified immunity. If you click on that, okay. Go back. Let me grab my coffee. Okay. So the short version of what is qualified immunity is simply that the cops can do what they want, when they want, and not be held responsible.
They can shoot to kill and not be held accountable.
So we can't do that. You don't. It's insanity. Okay. We know it's insanity. So if we simply look at that powerful piece, if we look at what is judicial immunity, okay? Judges then can't be held personally liable. SCOTUS gets paid off every which way from Sunday. It's all about the money. Kathy, you always got to follow. Everybody knows they got to follow the money, but they're not looking at it because the media tells them some puff story, some smoke and mirrors. Okay.
Still on, sweetie.
Right? What's presidential immunity? He can do any frickin' thing he wants. That's not having the law equal for everyone. What's the Electoral College? Oh, so Wyoming with a lot of electors who have a lot of money, who have benefited from the corruption, they have just as much a say so as everybody in California. Whatever happened to one person, one vote? Okay. Here's
Let me just insert this real quick, Roseanne. So, look, guys, what we know, and I think learned people, especially with higher degrees, get to a point where it's like, yeah, but, and then a lot of people throughout, I'd say now, especially, with the release of the Burns American Revolution, and a lot of people have always been like, yeah, but what about the Three-Fifths Statute? Oh, and we were protecting slavery and all of these things, which are incredibly important to understand about American history, because it's true. Yes, this was a country that made all of the power apparatus in tune with landowner gentry that were white, that were educated. Yeah.
Rich white guys.
That's how it works.
What was the first thing that we weren't quite simpatico with, Patrick? How I looked at how
the American dream. You thought the American dream was bullshit because of that, right? And see, for me as a white guy, right? Yeah, in my background and everything else, I'm like, well, I never really thought of it until much later in my life when I was force fed, being upside down in the housing industry, where I had to go, retool my imagination about how power works. But I studied political science, and I thought I knew all of this stuff, but it didn't. It really resonated with me until many years later. And the way I exemplify this, it's like the Rubik's Cube of your mind. Once you put all the pieces together, you can finally be completely solid, where you don't have to ask any more questions and they can't lie to you. But again, when you understand the law, you understand that smart attorneys can use all sorts of different tricks in the book to be able to figure their way out of whatever their objective is, right? And so it's a little bit fluid, and it's not completely, as static as we might once have thought, right? Because we think the Constitution is the supreme law, and everybody's going to abide by it. And we saw what happened, that once it got challenged by Project 2025 and the billionaires, they just basically steamrolled 248 years of history. Why? Because nobody freaking stopped them. Period. And how can they not stop them? Well, if you have the police, guys, that can shoot to kill, and I'm not saying the police shouldn't be able to shoot to kill. I wish they would have shot a lot more people on the January 6th insurrection. What I'm not for is shooting people in the back or planting drugs on them or doing that sort of corruption that would be insane. And if they bad cops, and they got to be held accountable like everybody else. Same with the Supreme Court. My God, they basically etch-a-sketch the entirety of the United States history to make Trump the king. And it's like, what? We're not going to, there's no way in hell we can let that go. We got to reverse that. Then what is presidential immunity? Nobody's going to stop this pig from doing everything he's doing. That's what's made you so angry this whole time, Jen, and obviously Kathy. And then, okay, well, how does the Electoral College work in? Because like my good friend and colleague said, she pointed out, the ridiculousness of having an exorbitant amount of billionaires in Wyoming that would have as much legislative influence as 50 million Californians. It's ridiculous. But it's also the fact that we could have 7 states in swing elections where Donald Trump can literally fraudulently, forge signatures to steal the election. And guess what? That happened. That happened in 2020. And that was the racketeering stuff that you're talking about that he just got out of, right? So, I mean, this just sort of sets that table for the grand perspective that takes you on the odyssey to what the details of the answers are. So please take us home, Roseanne.
So the first thing that came up for the a Clean New Deal is, we have to recreate a modern day Glass-Steagall Act, and it's
Mhm.
got to separate commercial banking from investment banking while ensuring that the full faith and credit of the United States cannot be used ever, ever, ever again to guarantee the global financial fraud and racketeering.
Let
Because
me ask Kathy a quick question. How
Mhm.
did you interpret when you heard that, Kathy?
What was that?
What did you interpret as you listened to that?
a new Glass-Steagall, what is
Yeah,
it?
that we need to have laws that make, I know this sounds really oversimplified, but uh, corruption is legal in our system,
Well,
you
that's the
know?
second part of it, but you're on the right track. But I want to ask you a little bit more
Yeah,
specific because I think I'm
yeah.
trying to get you to be a surrogate for everybody out there who doesn't know this stuff, right? Because I'm curious if you know it or you don't know it. Because I'm
I,
asking
you
from
know,
a nuts. Hold on, let me just finish this question real quick. From this perspective, do you know what Glass-Steagall was initially? Do you know why we had Glass-Steagall?
I am not as familiar with the financial stuff, to
Okay,
be
so
quite
let me
honest.
just tell you, and that's the whole point of this, because we're not taught this in schools. Okay, we're really not.
Hmm.
It's not even in any. I had to discover this a lot of ways that I never anticipated. Okay, it's not in textbooks. Let's put it that way, or at least not in my curriculum. So Glass-Steagall came about because of two senators. We did an investigation after the Great Depression that realized
Hmm.
what created the Great Depression. And they realized they were gambling with other people's money on over leveraged ratio, which created incredible amounts of fraud that blew up the entire global economy. That was the Great Depression that led to 25% unemployment, misery. And the only way out of it, as it turned out, was World War II. Okay. A lot of people died because of this stuff. Now, what they created was an alignment to where you have to have banking so people put their deposits so they can pay their bills, so they can pull out their ATM, go to dinner, whatever else. Have a financial system where you can do loans on your houses, your cars, the big purchases, that sort of thing. That's commercial banking. We need that. But
FDIC.
once you make other people's money, game to be
Hmm.
able to, in a large gambling racket of what we just showed you, of gambling like on liar's loans and deception, that you can't have investment banks and commercial banks merge. That's what we did during the Clinton administration. We got rid of those regulations that enabled that to happen. There were emails that just came out of the Epstein slot that
Right.
journalist Greg Palast revealed last Friday that showed that the entirety of it all was predicated to wipe out global regulation of banks. That was revealed in the conversations based on what Larry Summers was involved with all sorts of stuff that makes Epstein a part of this as well. I don't want to go into too many details of how that works because it would take a while. But the long and the short of it is, and I'm going to ask you this question, Jen B. Knowing what you just heard, right, would it surprise you that then the full faith and credit of the United States, which is predicated on fiat currency, that we could just create money out of thin air, basically, that we would provide tens of trillions of dollars to the guys that just destroyed the Addy Polks of the world, not to mention people in their pensions and people in countries around the world. Do you think that anybody anywhere in Congress would ever approve something like that as legal?
Don't think they would approve anything that would hold any of those criminals accountable, period.
What I'm telling you,
It's
it's no, in the laws itself, and we have this information on this website, it was completely against the law. There are laws and statutes based on how to regulate the Federal Reserve that say specifically that they couldn't do what they did, but they did it anyway.
because they're above the law.
Who's going to stop them? That's why we said, what do you got to do with qualified immunity, judicial immunity, presidential immunity? You're going to legalize tyranny through the Electoral College and everything else. Does that make a lot of sense now?
Oh man, we need to abolish electoral college.
That's what we
I've been
just
saying
said.
that from the get-go, even before treasonous Trump freaking stole the election in 2016. I was saying it back in when Al Gore should have won
Yeah,
the
well, that
election.
too,
I've been
exactly, because
saying
there
it
was a
since
Supreme
then.
Court as well. So what I'm just saying is that in the
Sorry.
statutes, Kathy, that and it's in our white papers, and I show this. The law was you can't speculate in commodities using exigent lending of the full faith and credit of the United States to backstop gambling, specifically in real estate. That's on the books. Does that surprise you? That
Yeah.
came from the Great Depression. So the fact
Yeah.
is, in 2008, did anybody stop them from doing that? Did anybody in media go, hey, did anybody in 60 Minutes go, hey, wait a second, this is illegal? Did anybody say that? Did anybody in Congress go, hey, wait a second, you can't give tens of trillions of dollars to guys that have just blown up the entire world? Did anybody say that?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
Why do you think my name's
Not
right
a one.
Why do you think my name's here?
They're
Because I'm the only one telling us. That's why. That's the only way we're going to get the clarity. So, my friend, please continue, Roseanne.
We see, here's the thing. We have to get people, and I've asked the question over and over and over again. Look at the precepts of the Clean New Deal. Do you agree or do you disagree? I have never had anybody disagree with me. So everybody wants to end Citizens United because what is that? It's only legalized corruption by all that dark money that they continue to get illegally because we don't have a modern day Glass-Steagall. We don't have the guardrails up there, okay? We can show people how $71 trillion was looted illegally and how Bernanke went out and sold it to the people and the financial system got the bucks from starting with the Obama administration, going through Trump, going through Biden, and now we got free for all, okay? So the billionaires got their money, they got their get out of jail free card. The billionaires, everything they're involved in, it just lifted them up.
Okay, look, she just nailed it. And I hope everybody out there just heard what Roseanne Rabbiola Mila just said. People, this didn't just happen during the Obama administration. That was the first time in history it happened. But once it happened, it never stopped. Mnuchin and Trump did the exact same thing pre-COVID. We had a repo run in 2019. That's where we get the 71 trillion. That doesn't include all the things in COVID. And then ultimately, Biden did the same thing when he bailed out,
Silicon Valley banks.
Yeah, Peter Thiel, especially for those of you who are like, oh my God, Peter Thiel, he's Satan incarnate. Yeah, he got bailed out by the federal government illegally. Okay, I'm telling you guys, this was all illegal. This was never, ever, ever written into the statutes that the capital flows in emergency situations during crisis go to these scenarios. It's built to basically stabilize the economy if you have a war, if you have freaking natural disasters, if you have, I don't know, a pandemic, but not a pandemic of corruption. Is it all starting?
Oh, I'm sorry, Patrick. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, does it now make all the sense in the world?
Well, yeah, and I kind of want to circle back to what I was talking about, where you have malignant narcissists, psychopaths, and now they call. My daughter's studying this, by the way, and she wants to go into white collar crime. A lot of these guys are on the antisocial behavior disorder thing, and one of the characteristics of people, men and women who have this, they don't they believe they're above the law and they don't care. And so I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that we have this whole population of people who they don't care. They have no empathy. They don't care how anything affects anybody else. Um, I mean, that's when you're saying these things, how could this happen? They
Right,
don't care.
because there's no accountability. Do you think they'd
They
care
don't
if they were hauled
care.
off to prison? Oh, I think they'd care. I think Donald Trump would frickin' cry me a river. I think if we pulled out his frickin'
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, they would
Well,
care
yeah,
if they
because
got
it happened to him.
Yeah, no, I'm
It
when I
telling
happened
you, but no, like every criminal, once they get popped and they're going to pay the piper, oh, they care then. Let me tell you. Now, of course, they don't care if they don't get held accountable. Would Epstein be, care? We could go on. So that's the whole point. That's
Mhm.
everything we're talking about. And it just all of the power has to be held accountable. Please continue, Roseanne.
Mhm.
We could spend $71 trillion a lot better, like as in getting off of fossil fuels and getting everything on the getting all our power from green energy and giving people more jobs than we can shake a stick at. And there's another idea called a federal job guarantee. If anybody wants to talk to me about that, I can tell them. But there's better ways.
Or
Okay.
Medicare for all or whatever. Listen, people are like,
Yeah.
hey, where do we find the money for
Mhm.
that? Well, where do they find the money after destroying the global economy? They poofed it into existence. And we could talk about M1, M2 money supply. I never intended to become an economist, but trust me, I've been studying the economy and economists for the last 10 years now. So I've got a pretty good sense of how this whole thing works. I'm promising you guys, it's all about productive economy, productive capacity. We can create any country we want, one that is honest, that can build a new middle class, that can, rise with dignity and just create incredible solutions to problems in every direction. Of course we can. This is the easiest thing in the history of the world if we purge corruption. That's the
But
problem.
if we don't
Well, Pat,
care, if we don't care, Kathy, okay, if we don't care about others, if
we
we
do
don't,
care about others.
okay,
They don't care about others.
but that's right. But what we have to do is we have to get the millions of people who do care, because I know there are more of us than there are of them.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
they make up about 10% of the
Yeah.
population.
So we
It's
cannot
crazy.
allow the minority to take over. They have been taking over. They are in control. We need to crush the corruption. So that's why we institute the precepts of the Clean New Deal, like expand the Supreme Court to 13 justices and
Right. Agree.
enforce a canon of ethics to make the perpetrators accountable so that when Supreme Court justices or any justice in our entire system gets caught taking a bribe, they get indicted, they get prosecuted, and you send them to Attica, or you send them to Pontiac, or you send them to whatever prison. If nobody's going to prosecute them, if nobody's going to find them accountable, okay, the jury found Trump accountable, said he's guilty 34 times. And what happened?
Nothing.
Nothing.
He became
Nothing.
president of the United States.
Well,
Pretended
I
he
don't
was
care if he's
president,
Pope.
and the Supreme Court made him above the law. Yes, that's what
Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's
You
so
need
crazy.
something in there so that that can't happen. Okay. We have to end the police can shoot to kill with no accountability. We have to end the presidential immunity. We have to end the electoral college and make it so that one person, one vote actually frickin' counts. Okay? We have to
Yes.
institute term limits for all
Mhm.
US senators and representatives. This ain't a vacation. This ain't a frickin' Club Med here. Okay?
Good way to put it. Good way to
Right?
put it, Roseanne. Exactly.
And then they're getting free drinks and free money and free everything and get out of jail free cards. Gotta stop. Gotta stop. And then we gotta stop all the insider trading for all members of the Senate, the House, the Supreme Court, the administration's cabinet. Now, we got all this stuff, right? What's the problem? We know what the problem is. Patrick's got a beautiful post. Corruption is the problem. We can show everybody all these things, but it's the proverbial you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Jen, you're upset and pissed all the time, like we all are, okay? But what
Yeah.
are we gonna do? Put their head in the water? If they drown getting the information, that's not doing any good. What we have to do is, and see, I am very much into the caring and empathy, but the caring and empathy has to go hand in hand with the details, which is why I am trying to make pieces of the whole idea that we're talking about in the Clean New Deal with the works of the new untouchables. I'm trying to make
Mhm.
these little memes to grab people, to hit them right between the eyes so that I can lead them, okay? Lead
You're
them
doing a really good job on those, Roseanne. I pay attention. I
that
pay attention to you and I try to see all of your posts. I mean, in between, like when I'm on break at work or, something like that, or have a minute at home. Those are outstanding. You are very talented. I don't know if you're putting those together, or if you're having somebody else putting those together, but those really do get the point across.
let me
And we
tell
just
you
need
what
to.
it is. You know, all it is? I take my words, I take Patrick's words, I take, I've watched the con, I've watched all the 700 and something truth bombs, I've watched the new Untouchables. I take words because I watch all this stuff over and over. I take the words and the ideas and I write them down and then I rework them and rework them and rework them. And I go into AI and I say, take my words exactly the way they're typed. I don't ask them for any other ideas. All I ask them for is a particular background. That's
That's how
all.
you do it. That's
I
God. That's
give them I give them my words and Patrick's words because those are like real people and people only have like 10 seconds. So here, smash them, get them, share it, do it, and see what happens. That's what we got to do. We got to persevere, persevere, persevere. That's all.
helps being pissed off too, because that still gives you the motivation. I know I probably have enough motivation because I'm so pissed off, probably for about 5 or 10 people just in me. So, and I'm always talking about it. And the thing is, though, is where I work, I can't really say much because we're not supposed to talk about it, but I know I work with a bunch of Trump supporters, and it's just so hard biting my fucking tongue day in
Yeah,
and day out.
yeah.
And then I have to overlook this crew. And it's just some of them I just want to slap them and just say, go home. But I can't do that because I'll lose my job. So that's why, keeping politics out. But I am just so pissed off and it just blows my mind how people can be so fucking stupid and so brainwashed. I just,
I love to hear I mean, because that's the anger. But so I've got to ask you and Kathy this at the same time. And look, we just spent approximately 2 hours, and I have to split soon. It's a Sunday. We're all busy with what we've got to do, but it's just first of all so important for us all to come together. It's these are the types of things that can get to other people because it's a learning process, right? But was there anything, and I have to ask you both, was there anything in this sort of discussion that you found particularly like maybe not in alignment with the way you think or something that you think is an impossibility? Was there something is there anything that just seemed like implausible to you about this discussion?
No, not at all. Not at
yeah,
all.
just what Kathy said and what you opened my mind, my eyes up a little bit more, Patrick and Roseanne, about how it's all coming to a head. It's just gonna blow like a big like volcano or a big giant pimple. It's just gonna blow. It's just and like Trump um brought all that to the surface. He brought it all to a head. You opened my mind to that or my eyes up and gave me some like, oh, indication. Okay, shit's finally hitting the fan and shit's finally gonna get done. It's just a question of when.
Well, it's now,
And
and it has to be. But see, here's the thing to both of you guys, and especially Kathy, thank you for that. And
my dogs have been going crazy. Sorry.
That's all right.
Well, we're going to finish up here in just a second. But I just wanted to just say, look, as well as I do, most of these ideas and the precepts, they're not original ideas. They were just things that we're just putting together based on what we discovered. These things have been out there for a long time. But I want everybody who's watching this and you folks to watch this critically every day that you go through your experience and your feeds and everywhere else. First of all, you didn't, when I asked you guys the question, what caused the 2008 great financial crisis? You were a little bit kind of, well, I haven't thought about that in a while, and I'm not exactly sure I know how to deal with the housing crisis, but you didn't know all the details, right? The details matter because not is it just our housing industry. It's it's every aspect of commodities in the United States follow the exact same telemetry. You want to go get a car? They're playing the same game. You want to go get insurance? There's a lot of things going on involved with that. You want to get into commercial real estate? Let me tell you, that's all blowing up left, right, and sinker because we bailed out all these guys that threw it all into commercial real estate, but there wasn't enough people that could afford this stuff. So now it's all tanking right now. And what's the Federal Reserve doing right now? It's literally, this is the audacity of Trump. They're trying to backstop losses in AI right now. Okay. They're literally doing stuff in the shadow sector. So what I just opened up was their systemology of power. This is why everybody wants to understand about the Epstein files, right? Because they're like, oh, if we see the names, we know who got protected and who's above the law. Okay, I can just assume they're all above the law if there were Clinton and this, that, and the other, and everybody else, and they didn't go to jail, and we haven't been taught. Michael, what's his name? Michael, God, I love him. He's really funny. And he came under some scrutiny recently. But God, the guy who's all things Epstein whisperer. Why can't Michael Wolff? Michael Wolff was, basically wrote an article last week why nobody ever heard about the details of the Epstein file, because the power structure didn't want anybody to know it. And he was an insider. He's about as close as it gets to being a part of the establishment. He's just, a funny guy making off with a lot of, interest right now. But he tried to get the story out there 20 years ago. They wouldn't tell the story, right?
Big money.
Right, because that's this story. That's what I'm telling you. And so what you have to do is like, no matter who you are out there, you have to understand it's not rocket science, it's racketeering. We know exactly how they do it, what they're getting away with, what they already got away with. We know how to turn the tables on this. And if there's anything about the precepts of the Clean New Deal you disagree with, then as far as I'm concerned, you don't agree with liberty and justice for all. You don't agree with the integrity of law. You don't agree with the revolution of the United States. You don't agree with the Civil War outcome. You don't agree with the war against fascism outcome. You don't agree with the civil rights movement. You don't agree with everything that's created this country over the course of the last 248 years. So, okay, see ya. But for the tens of millions of you who do, you can't go chasing waterfalls, man. Zoran Mondani's a great kid. He's a kid who's in the biggest city in New York City right now. And if they get, state-run grocery stores, if they get free transportation and childcare and that sort of thing, that's great. That's not a paradigmatic, comprehensive blowout of the corruption that we're all living through. This is. And I hope that everybody can wrap their arms around it and help spread, share. And I'm always available for questions. Does anybody else have any parting thoughts as we move on from here? And I just want to say thank you again for your time today. It means the world to me to spend time with us.
I have one thought, Patrick. You are a wonderful educator, and I think that that's your gift that I believe God gave to you. And regardless of what you, Patrick and Jen and Rose, what you believe in your heart and or your mind, that's your business. But I will say that each one of you has been given a gift, and you have used that gift to try to help others and to make society better. This is what I love about all three of you, by the way. You guys aren't doing this just for your own self-aggrandizement or your own pockets, because nobody's making money off of this. Neither am I, by the way.
Right.
You're doing it because you just think it's the right thing to do. And I just really feel like you're just good folks. You're good people. And you got, Patrick and Rose, in the beginning, I do have some ideas for you. We can talk about that later on how to break through to,
No, we're open to all ideas, but we got to grow the circle. We've got good input. I mean, between us, we're like 40,000 subscribers on Blue Sky. We got stalled. We got jammed on X. We got jammed on Facebook early. Some stuff to learn. But look, the bottom line is, the time is now. The time is now. This is not Patrick Lovell running for office. This is Patrick Lovell being the producer to get to everybody who is running for office to run on this, to force the issue, because corruption has got to be the centrifuge of everything that we do moving forward. And I will say this to your question, real quick, Jen. So let's take a look at here. So we do have a mechanism, because I do want to see clean New Deal product on everybody's head. Like MAGA, because look, we've got spectacular product, and we got to sell the truth.
Doggy bandana. Oh, okay. Sorry.
All people buy are lies. Why can't they buy the truth, man? If we live in a capitalist
exactly,
we got to sell the truth.
Good way to put it, Patrick. And it's buy the freaking truth, not the lie.
Build this, but we're not asking you. Like we've already spent millions of dollars to bring this information to you. Millions. This was not free to get this information to you. It took thousands of hours and years, but now we're here. We've got the answers. We got the $71 trillion truth, which of course is much bigger than it's beyond anybody's comprehension how huge it is. But guys, look, we've got, look at the Clean New Deal. You've got the doggy stuff. Look at all this fun stuff. Coffee mugs. You've got shirts up the wazoo. And when you have the truth, you're bulletproof. Come on, man. We can all come together on this. And I didn't even know, Roseanne, that we had redesigned this. That's beautiful. Good stuff to Tosh, by the way. But anyway, just wanted you guys to see that. So does anybody have anything else to say, or are we good to, move on to our
I just want to thank you guys, and I will share and share and share and post and repost all your stuff like I do, and every time I see it, and I see, oh, good, Roseanne, she posted something cool, and then I'll comment on it, or I'll I always repost it. I am trying to just get people in numbers so big to ignore, to jump on to this bandwagon. with you, Patrick, and with you, Roseanne, and with myself, and with Kathy. I'm just trying so hard to get it so well
We've
known.
got others.
And
It's not
Kathy,
just
it was an
us.
honor meeting you, by the way.
Yeah, it
You
was.
seem very intelligent, and I
Aw.
have not heard of you before or read any of your work, and apologize for
It's
that.
okay. Don't worry about it. I've always been a behind the scenes type person anyway. But thanks for platforming me, Patrick. I appreciate it. And Roseanne and Jen, it was a pleasure meeting you ladies. I don't really have any more to say. My phone's been. I'm one of those people that now I'm in demand with the family here. So
Oh,
thank you for spending time, and it was
yeah.
wonderful to see your adorable dog behind you. And thank you guys.
Yeah. Hey, you're all my
Patrick.
friends now. I want you to know that.
Thank
you know
you.
what? Watch
Thank
this.
you, Patrick.
You can see this.
Roseanne and Kathy.
Yeah.
Look at the screen.
The Con TV.
Oh,
Aw.
Patrick. Over and out, you guys.
Okay, take care. Bye.